is Ashley to tell me all this? All of that came in. So yeah, we are deep into ego. So what does your ego say right now?
When you said that, a part of my ego was like, "Oh, I can't believe he did not accept my compliment. And who am I?
Yeah.
It's just so, I mean, can we just normalize that and say that like everybody has an ego, comes up frequently, it's normal. Welcome to This Might Get Personal, where two life coaches, Nikhil and myself, Ashley, invite you into our unfiltered conversations. We're here to support others on their journeys while still walking our own, sharing the messy, the meaningful, and sometimes hilarious truths of growth and transformation. So grab a seat. This might just get personal.
Just been thinking about ego, really. I was just thinking about a nice thing you just said to me. You said, "Oh, your voice is sounding amazing." And my ego kicked in and said, "Nah, Ashley doesn't know what she's talking about. My sound is not that great. Uh, it is, I've been trying to fix it forever. I don't like the sound of my own voice. Who is Ashley to tell me all this?" All of that came in. So yeah, we are deep into ego. So what does your ego say right now?
When you said that, a part of my ego was like, "Oh, I can't believe he did not accept my compliment. And who am I?
Yeah.
It's just so, I mean, can we just normalize that and say that like everybody has an ego, comes up frequently, it's normal. And I know that there's like, has been some popular chatter in the background in some circles and books, even like How to Kill Your Ego was a very popular book. But I think it's just as important to talk about the fact that there is also the idea and the opinion that an ego is a healthy thing to have. What is your
Totally.
thoughts?
Totally. I think ego gets a bad rep. Killing things don't really make it go away. I don't think ego just goes away if you try to kill it.
Yeah.
So all these strategies, I know it is out there, like thinking that you can change your ego or like what. I mean, first of all, we have to define what do we mean by ego. So let's start there. Like, what do you mean by ego?
I want to hear your opinion. Tell
Okay,
me.
my opinion is simple. Ego is self-identity. It is actually the protection of your self-identity. So it is your suit of armor that protects you from your insecurities, all the things you've been hiding or not being reflective about. Now, ego also works in actually highlighting the things uh, about yourself, as well as some sort of a gesture to the world that you are good, you are amazing, you belong to the world. So I think for me it is a reflection.
Makes sense. Yeah,
And,
that's really good.
what do you think?
That's interesting because I never thought about it like that. I keep coming back to this memory of I was a participant in a silent meditation retreat in Thailand, and there was this monk that was talking to us throughout the 7 days that we were doing it there. We weren't allowed to talk. We lived with the monks, like the monks. No phones, no social media, no TV, nothing. So we had a lot of time to think. And he was this man in his late 70s. He's from England somewhere. He had been a monk for like 18 years or something. And he talked about ego one day and said that think of a man on a stage and he has no clothes. And the ego says, what am I doing here? I have no clothes on. Everybody's judging me. And all of his focus is on the way the outside world perceives him. And that is ego. But what is also ego, or a man with no ego, is a man that stands on a stage naked and does not care at all what other people think of him. But from society's standards, this man would not fit in. He would probably get arrested. Nobody would understand him or be able to relate to him. They might not even be able to have compassion for him because he's so focused on his own inner world and his own perception. And that has always stayed with me.
Okay, so, let me get this idea wrapped around, because I am confused. So the person who is being exposed or exposing their true self and worrying about what others think about that is being egocentric. Is that what you're saying? Is that ego? So like that feeling of somebody else judging me is the ego?
Like from what I took, so what I took from that is that our perception of how the outside world perceives us is our interaction with ego. Because you are focused on yourself and who you are, but from the perspective in relation to others. How do I fit in here? Am I acceptable here? Am I the person that other people need me to be in this moment? Where if all of that was gone, and let's say this man had actually no attachment to the perception of himself or other people, he just existed and was, and didn't let any of that internal chatter of the world get into his mind, he would just be a man standing on a stage naked. No context whatsoever. Maybe there's not even anybody in the theater or wherever he is. He just exists.
Interesting. Okay, so another question is, for that person who is completely self-aware, isn't there the ego of self-awareness? Like if you are a person who believes nothing can affect me, isn't that ego?
I think that is still a judgment. So that would be from the definition of a lot of books in psychology as a part of ego, because you are judging yourself in comparison to another thing or a situation or circumstance. So that's ego. In my opinion. I mean, this is all theoretical, mostly opinionated. I mean, we're just having a conversation.
I mean, yes, that is the point. The discussions here, it is not, we are not trying to solve it. We are simply trying to understand it a little bit more. And first of all, okay, if there is a scientist out there who can explain me where the ego comes from, please do so. If there is a philosopher who can explain certain things about ego, please help me, because I seem to get lost a lot with ego. Yeah. It gets used a lot in our day-to-day narratives, right? Yeah. Oh, my ego or his or her ego got attacked and that's why they reacted. Or, oh, look at him, he's just such an egocentric person. Or he's got a big ego. That's one. They've got a big ego. And it's all trying to say that the way I see things is so different from the way you have shown me who you are. So therefore, I do not agree with it. I do not want to do anything with it. So I will label you that your ego is too large or something. I mean, yeah, this is where it gets tricky to me. really define, because anybody can say, like, anyone can turn around and say that you have ego, and like
Mm.
we don't have a rebuttal. Like, yes, yes, we have ego. Yeah, we have something called something. So how do you do the day to day interactions with ego? How do you respond? How do you? So what piques your curiosity about day to day ego, or ego in that sense?
That's a good question. I feel like I'm constantly trying to find the balance within it. Because I do believe that there are healthy and unhealthy, or helpful and unhelpful. Actually, I prefer versions of ego. I recently reread a book that reminded me of that. It's called How to Be an Adult in Relationships, The 5 Keys to Mindful Loving by Richard Rico. Brought it with me just to reference. And because I knew that we were going to talk about that today, and thinking about something that he said really got to me. He says that the 5 components of an unhealthy ego are fear, desire, judgment, control, and illusion. Fear being that you're worried about a situation or a person, that I am worried that maybe you don't like me, and that puts the person on the defensive. Desire would be, in this moment, from this situation or this person, I need it to meet my demands or expectations. And judgment would be, I'm caught up in my own opinion about you or this thing. Control would be, I'm attached to this particular outcome and I need to fix, persuade, advise, or change you or this. And the illusion is getting caught up in a reality that doesn't really exist, which would be, for me, like, I consider that more expectation. Like, I'm caught up in the expectation of what this is. And the thing that he said that really got me is that the task is not to disown the mindsets of these things, but it's to redirect their energy so that they can serve us and others in a better way.
Okay.
And this
Yeah, that
actually
makes sense.
blew my mind, because I was constantly catching myself in every one of these things a million times a day. Like, I think a part of that is also caught up in manifestation and other work that we do as life coaches. Like, that would also be kind of an illusion, an attachment, and an expectation. Like, I really want this thing. What can I do to get it? Could be caught up in an ego kind of form. What is your opinion?
Okay, so the 5 perspectives is new. Like, I mean, that's interesting to hear. So what were the 5? Fear,
Desire,
desire,
judgment,
judgment,
control.
control, and illusion.
Mm,
Yeah, all of that makes sense. Like, first when I read when I heard the 5 first time, I was thinking the illusion of control, and I think
yeah.
that's where my mind went. So like, oh, illusion of control. That is something else maybe, but I just went there. Uh, but yeah, I kind of agree with you that these are ways in which we can, once we understand it, we can use it to help others and help ourselves. That's the
Mm,
aim of understanding ego. It's not to disown it, discredit it, or ignore it, or yeah, learn about it so that we can explore it further to be helpful rather than it being unhelpful for us or someone else. So for me personally, conscious choice of not using the words like uh, that person is egoistic, or using ego as a way of degrading, denigrating, joking even, I am consciously trying to avoid. So it it is useful in the sense that then we not, as you said at the start, we normalize this ideology or this behavior or this pattern. So pattern of protection, pattern of self-identity, pattern of thinking. So what I was saying is like we all have our egos, and let it be there. It's okay. uh, and we can notice other people's egos. Let it be there as well, and we can work from there. So, like, if so, I was trying to think, what are the things which people have difficulty with ego? Why do people have difficulty with, or why is ego got a bad rep? I still can't figure it out in my head. Why did ego become such a bad thing?
What do you think the answer to that question is? Can you think of something in your life that like happened to you or that you went through where you were like, damn, my ego?
Mm, yeah, I think there's so many examples of this idea of ego getting hurt. So if I get challenged about my principles, my ego get hurt. If I get, if somebody says, "Oh, mindfulness doesn't work for me," my ego gets hurt because now I have attached myself as a mindfulness practitioner. So
Mm-hmm.
anytime somebody challenges it, I feel like it's a personal attack. So when I perceive it as a personal attack, my ego gets hurt. And that is what ego, or that is why I don't, or I didn't like what ego meant. It's because my person was getting attached. The person inside me, or person who I believe I am, is getting, or is being threatened. So
Mm.
that is one. And yeah, that's one. So like for me, that is the way I see ego.
So what happens
Yourself.
when, well, I just
Oh,
wanted to go a little bit deeper
go on.
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Let's go.
what happens, would you say? Like, what emotions do you experience? What physical
This was an
sensations do you
example just now.
experience?
I just did that. Good example of what happens is I deflect a lot. So when it gets difficult to talk about, or if my ego is getting bruised, scarred, or torn apart, I deflect, change topic, try to
Mm-hmm.
create something else. Sadness, often confusion, often 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 not knowing whether I am uh, doing the right thing. So like my own identity, my own beliefs, my own values can get easily toppled if somebody else suggests the opposite. And in this culture, it is often everyone wants to have an opinion, so everyone would like to challenge what you believe, which is fine. But if I don't build the personal resilience, my ego gets hurt. So I invite like myself to do practices that support my resilience and like work with myself through coaches, through people, through friends, family to support me. Otherwise, it is it is disrupting my own personality. Does that answer? I mean, I went on a little bit of a tangent, but does
Oh, but
that answer your question?
I love, yeah. I mean, you told me that you experience sadness, which makes a lot of sense because it's kind of like the
Mhm.
dying of something that you believe in or challenging of your values. Anger, I feel like, would
Mhm.
also be totally acceptable in this situation. Frustration, because most people don't feel comfortable saying that they're angry. Um, and I think that that was just really wonderful self reflection that you could tap into that experience of what you had previously and identify what you experienced so
Mhm.
vulnerably. And tying, I love how in the end you tied into what you do to cope with that situation because you reach out for reassurance, excuse me, that
Mhm.
people that you feel, I'm assuming, deeply know you and can validate that this is the type of person that you truly are, Nikhil. You can go to those other people to reference and say, yes, okay, I am that person because I know it for myself, and I'm getting evidence from other people that I'm a good, kind, loving, generous person, a good person.
Yeah, that is it. That is it. Again, so coming back to the point of ego, that doesn't get rid of the ego. The ego is still there. Ego is getting massaged. The other way, if we talk about egos, like, oh, we should massage their egos instead of the opposite, which is they have a big ego. You should massage their ego, and
It's a great sales technique.
it is a
It's a great sales technique. Yeah. Someone just used it on me the other day, actually. And I was like, this is working.
like in what context? So exactly, like how did they massage your ego?
So he was just telling me all of the opportunities that I had, that I was great in so many different areas, that I was this or that or wonderful. And then if anything came up in the conversation that made it seem like I wouldn't be working with this person or that I would go another way, they always brought it back
Mm,
to like, oh, but you're so smart, but you're so clever. Look at all the things that you've done. You probably don't need us. We would be so lucky to have you and work with you and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, this works. This is feeding my ego, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. Yes, it is a form of manipulation, but I think that those things will always exist. I think manipulation is a is my this might come back to kick me in the ass later, but I think it's a natural thing that people do. I think it's more important that people learn how to recognize it and take control of their own actions and participating with it. Be like, I don't want to participate in this. I recognize it. No judgment, no attachment. I'm going to step away. Um, but yeah, I think from what going back to the book and what David Rico had said, I really hope I didn't butcher his name. Um, he said redirecting the energy of those things into something more helpful. And for me, helpful is one of my highest incentives when I do things or values or goals. When I say things, when I choose to do things, I'm asking myself, is this actually helpful? Because anything that comes out of my mouth or my actions are my responsibility. And I want to make sure that I'm not just frivolously giving out or doing or saying things that maybe are out of ego. And maybe it feels good when I say it, but it's not actually helpful. Do you know what I mean? Um, so I really wanted to share these because this just blew my mind. So the energies he talked about transferring, we'll just go back to the 5 unhealthy ego characteristics. Fear, we can transfer that into wise caution, which makes way more sense. It's like, okay, I'm so afraid of my partner getting sick and me losing them. And instead, just being cautious and aware of the situation. It's like, okay, my partner is not doing well. I'm going to be aware of the situation and use my wisdom to the best of my ability to deal with the situation as it is presented to me, instead of falling into fear and anxiety. Desire is the second one. And he talks about transitioning desire instead of trying to get something out of a situation or a person, redirecting that energy into open possibilities and reaching out. Just like we did when we were talking about a podcast out of a conversation and be like, hey, this would be a really fun project to do. And we both just got so lit up about it. And instead of, one of us unconsciously or subconsciously manipulating the other one to get a podcast episode, we were both lit up and talked about the openness of the possibilities of this thing happening, which is a totally different energy. Yeah, I'm just going to pause there for a second because I'd really like to hear your opinion on that one.
100% agree. 100% agree. Using it, the wise effort. Wise, what did you say? Wise?
From fear to wise caution.
Wise caution. That sounds amazing. Fear to wise caution and
From desire to
destructive
open
desire
possibilities.
to open possibilities. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think I resonate also often as just coming back to the coaching aspect before I get really, really personal. Often coaches don't collaborate as much. I mean, they love to think they're collaborating, but one person wants more or less, or it's not a it's not quite as straightforward as collaboration. So I think people try to help each other out as much as possible, which I believe all the coaches out there are helping people. But one thing is collaborating in this way. So yeah, I think when we light up about something, I think it's the opportunity, it's the time, it is the wisdom. The wisdom is there, and then it also highlights one more thing, that these things are happening every day, all around you, all the time, but we are not probably paying attention to it because we are egocentric. So when we are, as you explained at the top of the program about that person who's just naked up on the stage, if you are okay with who you are, these opportunities present itself and you actually do something about it. Otherwise, you'll fall in the battle of trying to manipulate, not in a bad way, but even in like business interactions are a manipulation. Like, let's be real. I mean, I might get a little bit of flack for that, but I'm absolutely being real about this. It's a manipulation. You're trying to sell things which people may or may not need, but you're convincing them that they need it. And this is as a sales tactic. So it's a manipulation. And with kindness and compassion, which we talked about in the previous episode, self compassion towards that is fine. It's okay to sell. There's no problem of selling. There's no problem of providing value. And your worth needs to be acknowledged. So, coming back to this idea of collaboration, I think it's a win-win. It's a win-win game for me because, first of all, it's a game because we are experimenting, we are learning, we are trying, we are moving. Secondly, it's fun. And when it's fun, I think we lose our ego. When it's joyful,
Playful.
and playful, like there's no ego. Again, last time you were in flow, or last time you were so immersed in something and you were like maybe dancing or like whatever. I get that nowadays when I'm dancing and stuff, is the sense of like I don't feel myself. I don't feel like I'm here. I'm just part of the process, and that's when I think my mind is fully open, ready to receive, because it just doesn't comes back to the ego. Not that ego is bad. It's right. Again, I come back to this. It's not bad. It's a protective mechanism which is trying to keep you safe from all the fears, desires, illusions, and everything else out there. So yeah, I think it's great to collaborate. I think more people should do this.
So, as a coach and people, I mean, we sell products, we
Mm-hmm.
sell services. What is your opinion then on that? If you say that all selling is a form of manipulation?
100% you should do it. It's wise manipulation. It is, yeah, 100%.
Tell
I
me
mean,
more.
it's not a, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's a, is is work through it compassionately, work through it with the mind fully on what you are trying to sell. So if you are trying to sell something and you don't feel invested in what you sell, you're not going to be able to manipulate, convince. Maybe you can through different strategies, which we will not discuss here, but normal people won't get convinced by certain some things which you are selling if you don't believe in it. So if you want to, if you believe in certain thing, act like you believe, talk like you believe. Let your ego believe that you believe it. Doesn't it make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah. So if yeah, so that's what I think. I think it yes. There is no this is not a uh, it's not a conflict. It's actually using this. I think it's an energy. It's the energy. Anything you take, anything which you are fighting, or the ego you may be fighting, is energy laden. So you have to spend a lot of mental effort to fight your ego. So instead of fighting it, let it be and play with it. Play with your ego. Mm, yeah, seriousness is what kills joy, I guess. I mean, but also when we bring seriousness or the way we are serious about certain things often helps the ego to make it sound more authoritative than it is. So bringing playfulness, joyfulness, fun, this is not, I mean, all of this. Ultimately, we are here. We should be thankful. We are grateful. The chances of us being born are like one in trillions. So like this, all of this is a fun dream which we are living. So might as well enjoy it. And coming back to ego, yeah, let the ego be there. Ego, let the ego also
Mm.
enjoy this moment.
Yeah, and I
But
think
yeah,
we're dancing
personally, I
around
think
the. Go ahead.
go on. No, personally, I think it's fun to have this discussion because I don't think uh, I have looked at ego in such detail. Now we are chatting about this. I'm actually thinking of all the good things, bad things, okay things that ego has done for me. Like, ask not what you can do for your ego, ask what your ego can do for you.
Mm.
That's not what JFK said, but uh, yeah. So like, work with your ego, learn about it, and encourage you and myself and everyone who's listening to learn more about different perspectives. So we'll go into it a bit more, but like different philosophy, different ideology, different countries, different places have different ideas of ego. So, like if you look at uh, place I'm originally from, India, ego is treated as something which is needs to be uh, tamed or managed. It is something. It's an obstacle to self-realization in certain Hindu mythology and religion. It's an obstacle that needs to be uh, overcome. And again, because there's a lot of collectivistic ideas there, ego cannot flourish when there is many involved. Is the idea. So like ego on its own cannot just combat the army of your family, army of your family, your family. So like the collectiveness. So I think that is another perspective which I wanted to explore a little bit. Like, what are some of the other philosophies talk about this? So I think I'll encourage anyone listening to just explore, maybe give your thoughts on what ego means to you, what it means for your culture, so which culture you're from, and yeah, let's carry on this discussion, right?
Mhm. Um, that touched on something that really reminded me. You said, ask not what you can do for your ego, but what your ego can do for you. And I think ego can be so helpful in the way that, let's say that you're applying for a job and you don't like the manager, you don't like what they're asking of you, you don't like the job itself, what you're doing, you don't like how much they're paying for you. Instead of negotiating, so many people fall into their pleasing side and say, yes, yes, I should be thankful. I should be thankful that I have a job. I should be thankful that they offered it to me. I should be thankful that this, that, the other. Instead of saying, no, you know what, I have so many qualifications. This is actually not the amount of money that I need. I need to be making more. I don't actually like working in this environment or with these people, and I know how much that affects me. Lean into that ego a bit and say, you know what, I'm actually worth a bit more. Can we talk about that and find like a healthy way of negotiating with people while still knowing yourself, knowing your worth? I think it's and the same thing for in the dating world. You go out there, you're dating, you're meeting
Mm.
people, you realize somebody's not exactly the right fit. And then you're like, hey, sorry, this is not for me. I wish you the best. Or the other person breaks up with you and be like, okay, I let you go. I let you go. I detach with peace. I recognize my worth. I'm not going to call you. I'm not going to go on your social media posts. I'm not going to look for you or
Mm.
go to the places that I know that you're going. I know my worth. I step into my ego in that essence. There's so many ways that we can let it be something, as you said, that serves us.
Mm. Mm.
But going back to how we can shift these energies and redirect them. So we went from fear to wise caution,
Mm.
desire to open possibilities and reaching out for those possibilities. Judgment, he said,
Mm.
can be intelligent assessment.
Mm.
So sticking to the facts and not letting our world experience or our opinions get into that. Not saying my opinion is right. Sorry, it's your opinion. It's not actually right. It's just, all of the things that you've experienced in your life has calculated to this being a fact for your life. But what has happened to me in my life is actually quite the opposite. And I have a different opinion than you. That doesn't make anybody right or wrong. It just is. And it can be as
Mm.
it is. So I particularly fall into judgment a lot. And I think it's just
Mm.
a normal thing of like, no, I don't want the situation. Yes, I do want the situation. And you have to have the skill of judgment to know how you're going to create boundaries. Like, is this good for me? Do I think that this is something that I want to have in my life? Where am I creating that boundary in between me and that thing? And how much do I want to let in and out of that in my world? Yeah, I saw your face light up when you heard me say that. What are your thoughts?
Mm. Yeah, I think I mean I completely agree. There's nothing more to say about that. It's 100% true what you just said. And my thoughts uh, go to again personal anecdotes we use with ego.
Mm.
It's very so the idea of ego being the bad person is something which we are trying to change. That's what we are trying to communicate through this. Is what I'm understanding. Is from what your
Mm.
perspective is like. Don't treat ego as this bad thing. It is there. Use it. Make it helpful for us, and yeah, work with it. Then work against it. And the job situation, like that was a very personal one as well. So like the job and the when you were talking about it, my mind went to people pleasing. And my mind went to like, okay, I will settle for less because that gives me this perceived uh, advantage that I understand what you're going through and I surrender. While your ego is getting bruised because you believe that you are, as you say, worth more, and the ego is getting bruised because you just you just basically told yourself, I'm not worth that. That's so powerful. Like that's when you hear it out loud that like that, even saying it out like that made me like, ooh, like yourself is telling yourself that you're not worth it is kind of really hard for anyone to take, like let alone somebody else telling you. And if you tell it to yourself, imagine this protective thing called ego, how hurt it can be and how it can start to like fight back. So yeah, I think it's important to make ego your friend.
Mm, that's beautiful. So just carrying on to get to the last 2 points, because I think that they're so brilliant.
Yeah.
Control, we can
Yes.
shift into necessary in most daily activities because it is actually necessary in most daily activities. So we accept that I need to have some sense of control over my life. I have to witness that and accept that and take the control from being in other people's hands for what's happening in my life, bring it back to self center and say, I am actually in control of these things. And I decide every day, do I let this person be in my life? Do I let myself work at this job? Do I let these friends, these family members, these people be a part of my life and interact with me? Do I create boundaries or doors, if you will, around these things? I think I'm seeing this come a lot back to boundaries, at least in my
Mm-hmm.
own mind.
Yeah.
Um, but instead of trying to control other people or things and let that control become more external, come it back to us. No, I'm in control of my health. I control what comes into my body and out. It's not the world's fault for the amount of food that I can afford or what's available to me or what I put into my body or if I have enough time to make the food that I want because I said yes to all of the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And just bringing that sense of control back. And the last being illusion, fantasy, expectation, what have you. And this is just projection of into the future. Like I have a mental picture or belief, and that this is what it has to be like, and this is what I'm attached to. Instead, we can shift that into a gateway into imagination and creativity and transform that energy.
Wow.
Tell me,
Wow.
tell me
Okay.
what you just got. Tell me.
The gateway into transformation and creativity from the illusion. That's what I'm was talking about when playfulness and like all the that's what I meant. It's like, yeah, this is your opportunity to be creative. We have these amazing ability, which apparently no other animal has, is this ability to imagine and dream. Apparently, so I cannot be sure about it because I'm not any other animal apart from me, and I don't even know whether someone else is having it or not. Side note, sorry, but I'm absolutely yeah thrilled at that possibility of like using your illusion as a doorway to create things. So like even like I did an exercise today about mental imagery, and I just created my own world where I was doing certain things and like I'm happy. Like I completely just went into my imagination for like 10 minutes. And there was this ego saying, or ego, or whatever we call this ego, trying to pull it back to what we know right now and what I think I should be. And that is where we can change our relationship with ego. So I think with playing with these images, imagination, and belief, very important. There's believe that we can change our relationship with our ego so that becomes helpful for us is possible. I think it's possible. So yeah, and the control element also very important. Let's just finish it. The control element is, yeah, there's a lot of things in our control. As we know, I think we know that we can control a lot of things: our environment, our sleep, our hygiene, our all sorts of things we can control. We choose not to because again, our ego gets involved because that ego hasn't been treated well so far. So when you treat it well, then you start to become in line or aligned with your ego. All of these control aspects comes easier, I guess. So I think for me, all of these opposite, when way you described it from the book and from your thoughts, the opposite of, it's not opposite, it's like contra indications or something. Like, how do you define it? It's like to develop the skill you focus on. So if you want to manage your fear from the ego, you work on certain things. If you want to manage the control element of your ego, you work on what is the one for control? Forgot.
Control is just accepting that it's necessary in most activities, but bringing it back to yourself.
Necessary, yeah. So yeah, I think that's fascinating discussion, and I think we are almost coming to the end.
Yeah. I think ego is a beautiful thing, and I think that, like I said, it gets a bad rap, and I do and would recommend to choose just one of these things and notice if you can, for anybody wanting to go deeper on this, notice if you can, or just play with, if you can, shifting just from judgment to intelligence assessment, just for today, or from fear to wise caution, and see what comes up, because that's really the biggest art of self-discovery, is playing with it, releasing yourself of the judgment, releasing yourself of the criticism or the blame, and just saying, okay, what happens if I try to shift this? Whoa, I meet a lot of resistance. Whoa, this other thing comes up. Whoa, I'm noticing that my parents' voice is all of a sudden in my head. Working with a life coach was the best decision I ever made for working with things like that. I can only recommend that. But also, baby steps. Doing it by yourself is totally doable, especially doing it with friends that are interested in the same thing, that are kind and supportive friends. And I would just commend anybody that is listening to this or on their journey of just being a better person. You're amazing. Keep doing it. If you see the benefit in it, you're on the right path. And I send you so much love for that.
Appreciate it, Ashley. Thank you. And yeah, I think that's it from me as well. And next week, we are going to be discussing emotional regulation and resilience. So some of these elements might even pop up in the next week's discussion. So yeah, looking forward to that. Take care, everyone. Leave your comments, subscribe, follow, and yeah, practice makes progress and much more. Keep practicing.
Have a beautiful day, guys. Bye.